Good morning. We hope you are doing well. My name is John. This is Mornings with the 1%. And no, that most assuredly does not mean mornings with me. What it is you are lucky enough to live, work, and recreate in some of the nicest areas on the planet. And it's not just us saying so. The USDA did a survey of all the counties in the U.S., 3,142 counties. And interestingly enough, all of the counties in our coverage area, Calaveras, Alpine, Amador, and Tuolumne, are all not only in the top 1%, but the top 0.5% by what they call their physical amenities index of all the counties in the U.S. And interestingly enough, is Calaveras County on that same index is the highest ranked non-coastal county in the entire U.S. And why does that matter to you? It may not, but we think it does in the fact that we know that life can be hard with COVID stuff, with financial stuff, health issues, all the rest of that stuff. But in some ways, I think it is comforting to know that in many ways, it doesn't get any better than this. In fact, all of the counties that ranked ahead of Calaveras were all wildly expensive coastal counties. So if you factor in cost of living, cost of housing, recreational opportunities, etc., it does not get any better than this. And that's not just us saying so. It's statistically. So I think it's kind of a fun little thing to think about as the world starts waking back up from COVID, as everybody starts getting back to events, etc., which is, for us, that's exactly what we like to cover. It's kind of a fun deal. We like covering, this is a great area to live, work, recreate, visit, and we hope it only becomes better. And we know that sounds like Pollyanna, but I think that we can make it so to speak, and we hope to do that. All right. We're doing something a little different this week. Normally on our weekend update pieces, we run them Thursday evening. We thought we would move it to a Friday morning because that way this segment will run on Comcast, the local cable channel for their weekend little news piece, but it runs this evening, so we thought we would be a little closer to the news. So let's actually run down and look at some of the news pieces breaking in through on this Friday. This is March 26th. And if you may hear a little bit of noise in the background, they are doing construction next to us. No, that is not something we planned for, but it is nonetheless. And yes, that means the economy is rolling along, and there are people working, swinging hammers, or building a brand new house. I think it's actually going to be a big one, about 3,000 square feet, I believe. So there you go. All right. Today is, let's do this a little bit. We like to do this a little bit sometimes. Today is March 26th. And as Churchill and some of the other ones says, the farther back you can see, the farther back you look, the farther forward you can see. And I think sometimes that is, we all think that what is happening politically and everything else is all something new and unique right now. It's not. I mean, it's variations on a theme. The political pendulum swing left, right, all the rest of that stuff. And there are patterns from history that repeat. On this date, 1958, the United States launches Explorer 3. And going back earlier, 1942. The first female prisoners arrive at Auschwitz concentration camp in German-occupied Poland. 1945, the Battle of Iwo Jima ends as the island is officially secured by American forces. 1954, nuclear weapons testing. The Romeo shot of Operation Castles detonate on the Bikini Atoll. Yield 11 megatons. All right. Births today. Let's see here. Exciting births today. The American politician William Blount was born on this day. Benjamin Thompson was born on this day in 1753. And on this day in 1850, let's see here. Robert Frost, American poet and playwright. He died in 1963. Robert Frost was born on this day in 1874. Should we do a Robert Frost poem? Yeah. Should we do one? Let's see here. The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent into the undergrowth. Then took the other, just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay, in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever be back. I should be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Yes, it does. All right, a little bit of rundown on President Biden held his first news conference yesterday, and I believe it is the longest that a president has gone without a formal press conference. If you were a fan of Biden, you were relieved he made it through it well. If you are not a fan of Biden, you saw some stumblings and some gaffes. This is a little piece from PBS, and we're going to go down through that. Then we'll be back with local weather, all kinds of other stuff. But this is a little short piece from PBS on
speaks. Today's White House news conference was heavy on the subject of immigration at the southern border. But it also touched on voting rights and the Biden agenda's prospects in the U.S. Senate. White House correspondent Yamiche Alcindor was there, and she has our report.
After 64 days in office, President Biden held his first official news conference. He began by naming a new target for COVID vaccinations.
We will, by my 100th day in office, have administered 200 million shots in people's arms. That's right, 200 million shots in 100 days. I know it's ambitious, twice our original goal, but no other country in the world has even come close.
But the challenges at the U.S. southern border took center stage.
And is there a timeline for when we won't be seeing these overcrowded facilities run by CPB when it comes to unaccompanied minors?
And so what we're doing now is attempting to rebuild the system that can accommodate what is happening today. If you take a look at the number of people who are coming, the vast majority, the overwhelming majority of people coming to the border and crossing are being sent back.
Mr. Biden was questioned about possibly doing away with the filibuster, a potential roadblock to immigration reform and his larger agenda.
Successful electoral politics is the art of the possible. Let's figure out how we can get this done and move in the direction of significantly changing the abuse of even the filibuster rule first. It's been abused from the time it came into being by an extreme way in the last 20 years. Let's deal with the abuse first.
The president also criticized efforts by Republican state legislatures to restrict voting access.
What I'm worried about is how un-American this whole initiative is. It's sick. I'm convinced that we'll be able to stop this, because it is the most pernicious thing. This makes Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle. I mean, this is gigantic, what they're trying to do. And it cannot be sustained. And do everything in my power, along with my friends in the House and the Senate, to keep that from becoming the law.
President Biden also made news. He announced that he expects to run for re-election with Vice President Harris on the ticket.
Have you decided whether you are going to run for re-election in 2024? You haven't set up a re-election campaign yet, as your predecessor had by this time.
My predecessor needed to. My predecessor. Oh, God, I miss him. No, the answer is yes. My plan is to run for re-election. That's my expectation.
In the wake of 2 recent mass shootings, the president was questioned about gun control, but he quickly pivoted to infrastructure.
It's a matter of timing. As you've all observed, successful presidents, better than me, have been successful in large part because they know how to time what they're doing, order it, decide on priorities, what needs to be done. The next major initiative is, and I'll be announcing it Friday in Pittsburgh in detail, is to rebuild the infrastructure, both physical and technological infrastructure of this country.
After nearly 20 years of war in Afghanistan, President Biden did not commit to withdrawing American troops by a May 1st deadline agreed to by the Trump administration.
It's going to be hard to meet the May 1 deadline. Just in terms of tactical reasons, it's hard to get those troops out. We've been meeting with our allies, those other nations that have NATO allies who have troops in Afghanistan as well. And if we leave, we're going to do so in a safe and orderly way.
He also said he would challenge China's President Xi on human rights abuses and said former President Trump skirted that responsibility.
We are going to continue in an unrelenting way to call to the attention of the world and make it clear what's happening. That's who we are. The moment a president walks away from that, as the last one did, is the moment we began to lose our legitimacy around the world. Thank you.
The president then departed the East Room to meet virtually with European Union leaders at the European Council Summit.
And Yamiche joins me now from the White House. Hello, Yamiche. So the president, as you reported, was asked a lot about immigration today. What is his explanation for why so many migrants are now trying to enter the U.S.?
That's right. A lot of the president's first press conference was spent on this issue, a big challenge for the Biden administration, immigration. He laid a lot of the blame for what's happening at the southern border at the feet of his predecessor, former President Trump. He said he inherited a mess and that former President Trump dismantled largely the legal immigration system. And he said that he was now trying to rebuild it. He said that he didn't back down on the idea that he was going to follow U.S. law, something that President Trump didn't want to do, which was allowing unaccompanied minors into the United States. He also, though, said that migrant families, all of them, most of them and are being sent back right now, but all of them he wants them to be sent back. They are being sent back right now under Title 42. That deals with public health and the idea that we're in the middle of a pandemic and can't at this time take in families. That being said, President Biden said that he really needs time to get his hands around this. He also said that he would give journalists access to those overcrowded border facilities where we see a lot of children sleeping on floors and saying that they're terrified and not getting sunlight. But he says he has to first be given a chance to implement his plan before we can start to see those facilities as reporters.
And Yamiche, the president was also asked about gun violence in America after these terrible shootings in Atlanta and in Boulder, Colorado. He didn't offer many details today, but what is known about what the White House is thinking with regard to guns and gun violence?
President Biden did not spend a lot of time talking about gun reform, and that is telling because it is an issue that he talked about on the campaign trail when he was a candidate. He pivoted very quickly to infrastructure, talking about roads and bridges, White House officials tell me that the president and his aides are they're looking at a number of executive actions, including possibly requiring background checks for so-called ghost guns. These are hand-assembled firearms that right now are not registered as firearms. You're not required to have a background check to purchase these. So that's something they're looking at. But part of the reason why the president didn't talk a lot about guns today is because filibuster and the issue in the Congress is really something that would hold up a lot of gun reform and immigration reform and voting legislation. We heard the president today call GOP efforts to restrict voting rights sick. But just hours after that, Georgia passed a really telling voting bill that restricts access to voting by mail to a number of people, as well as gives more power to the state legislature there. So that tells you, in some ways, why the conversation about filibuster is so needed among Democrats and why they're still talking about it.
And finally, Yamiche, all this comes as the country, of course, still in the grips of this pandemic. What is the president saying about plans to get more people vaccinated?
Well, the president outlined a plan, a new goal, 200 million shots in arms by the end of his first 100 days. I've been talking to White House officials about this goal. I talked to Cameron Webb. He is a senior White House policy advisor on COVID equity. And he told me that there's a detailed plan that they're announcing today to invest $10 billion focused specifically on COVID equity along with this new goal. It's going to be targeting community health centers. It's also going to be targeting patients who are on dialysis, who are having kidney failure and kidney problems. And also it's going to be trying to get vaccine confidence up in places like rural communities as well as communities of color. But I have to tell you, Judy, this is really important because there's some analysis, including at the New York Times, that said African Americans, their vaccination rate is half of that of white Americans, and that gap is even bigger among Latino Americans.
All right, Yamiche Alcindor reporting from the White House on the day of this first news conference for President Biden. Thank you, Yamiche.
All right, and thank you back for joining us. Let's see, let's have a quick look. No. We were trying to find a nice little piece here on the Suez Canal blockage. We'll just run through it. And this is the one I think you're going to see. You're going to see gas go up the next few weeks, etc. Because they're looking at that. Let's look at the latest on this one. And let's see if our producer Juan can get the right graphic over here. Let's see. I think we may be able to, because this is kind of markets related, so we'll go with the Dow logo. All right. A little bit of rundown of some of the headlines. Dominion Voting Systems suing Fox News for $1.6 billion over 2020 election claims. Actually, I think they'll lose on this one. I just think, some of this stuff is, well, anyway. All right. I doubt they will win. Let's see. News from the SBA. SBA administration set to triple loan amounts for businesses hurt by COVID. That is a good thing, because I think one of the things is small businesses have just been decimated by it. Anyway, it's all right. Let's see here. We were looking for Suez Canal piece. All right, and the latest in on that is it may be blocked for a while. All right, here we go. Bloomberg, 16 minutes ago. Dislodging the Suez Canal ship said to need at least a week. At least a week. Supply lines let's see, dislodging the container vessel blocking the Suez Canal will take at least a week. Wednesday, at least a week. All right. A longer effort than initially feared that will amplify the disruption of global supply chains for everything from oil to grains to cars. The extended halt to traffic through one of the world's most important waterways is stretching a container shipping industry that's already operating at full capacity. It threatens costly delays for European companies that rely on a steady flow of Asian imports for consumers who've grown fond of fast online purchases during the pandemic. The task of refloating the 200,000-ton ship called Ever Given, which is still firmly wedged across the vital maritime trade route, will require about a week of work and potentially longer, said people familiar with the matter, who asked not to be identified. Rescue efforts had initially been expected to last only a couple days. The delays are likely to increase costs, adding to already widespread inflationary pressure on supply chains, said Chris Rogers, lead trade analyst for SP Global Market Intelligence. Panjiva, the short-term ripple effects will be increased potential for stocks out in consumer goods and risks of just-in-time manufacturing supply chains that have already been roiled by Brexit. Commodity shortages may face further interruptions. Even before the Ever Given ran aground in the Suez Canal on Tuesday, the global trade network was already showing signs of strain due to the year-long economic disruption of the coronavirus pandemic. And it is... Let's see if we can pull this up. Let's see if we... Nah, it's not going to load in there. But, so I think if you're going to see, it's going to do upward pressure for us on gas prices, all kinds of stuff. It is, we're going to see disruption across the board. All right, a little bit before we go to weather, a little bit of the business perspective from the perspective of tech, and we like to do this because we think that, in a weird way, everything is tech now. Because everything, all of the business cycles, everything is being affected by tech. For example, even the automobile manufacturing right now, it is held up by a shortage in chips. So it is, in a weird way, everything is tech. So let's run down through some of the business headlines. And this is China erasing H&M from internet amid Xinjiang backlash. And this is from the AP News. And this is H&M disappeared from the internet on China as the government raised pressure on shoe and clothing brands and announced sanctions Friday against British officials in a spiraling fight over complaints of abuses in the Xinjiang region from a report. H&M products were missing from major e-commerce platforms, including Alibaba and JD.com, following calls by state media for a boycott over the Swedish retailer's decision to stop buying cotton from Xinjiang. That hurts H&M's ability to reach consumers in a country where more than a fifth of the shopping is online. Shockwave spread onto other brands as dozens of celebrities called off endorsement deals with Nike, Adidas, Burberry, Uniqlo, Lacoste after state media criticized the brands for expressing concern about Xinjiang. Brands are struggling to respond to pressure abroad to distance themselves from abuses without triggering Chinese retaliation and losing access to one of the biggest and fastest growing markets. That pressure is rising as human rights activists are lobbying sponsors to pull out of the Beijing Winter Olympics planned for February 2022. Tencent, which operates games and popular WeChat messaging service, announced it was removing Burberry-designed costumes from a popular mobile phone game. Now, as many of you are aware, the little tit-for-tat, and it's not little, the tit-for-tat between the UK and China, they are kind of the tip of the spear on the Hong Kong issue and some of the rights abuses, because under terms of the agreement when Hong Kong was handed over to the Chinese in 1997, I believe, was that they were supposed to have a 50-year period of freedom. And if you look at some of the press freedom lists from even as soon as a couple years ago, Hong Kong always ranked near the top Now it's gone. I mean, effectively gone. And the UK, as far as freedom as an independent entity. Also, the UK has a huge number of, I think it started out at 600,000, and they may have gone up from that, of open visas. So where if you want to immigrate from Hong Kong to the UK, they are welcoming you with open arms, and it becomes quite a, quite a piece. All right, run down through a couple quick things here. And this is a wonderful time in our area. This is now through the middle of April is my favorite time of the entire year for our area for many reasons. And one of these is that for the next month or so, we are firing on all cylinders. You can still ski in the mornings. You can still ski in the mornings. You can cross-country season has been extended till May 2nd. Bear Valley will stay open until April 18th. And it is warm enough now that you can go. You can golf in the afternoons. You can go cycling. You can do wine tasting. The hills are green. The grass is green. We don't have a fire risk yet. We still, we always have fire risk, but you know what I mean. And it's pretty cool. All right. All right, and this is one last little tech piece, and then we'll run on to weather. AI at work, staff hired and fired by algorithm. This is from the BBC. The Trades Union Congress in the BBC is calling for new legal protections for workers, warning that they could soon be hired and fired by algorithm. Among the changes, it is calling for a legal right to have any high-risk decision reviewed by a human. From the BBC, the report. TUC General Secretary Francis O'Grady said the use of AI at work stood at a fork in the road. AI at work could be used to improve productivity in working lives, but it is already used to make life-changing decisions about people at work, like who gets hired and who gets fired. Without fair rules, the use of AI at work could lead to widespread discrimination and unfair treatment, especially for those in insecure work and gig economy. The union is calling for an obligation on employers to consult unions on the use of high-risk or intrusive AI at work, the legal right to have human review design, and a legal right to switch off from work and not be expected to answer calls or emails. Changes to UK law protect against discrimination by algorithm. All right. And on the universal basic income, Oakland, this is from the New York Post, Oakland will launch one of the largest UBI programs in the U.S., giving some low-income residents $500 a month with no strings attached. Some low-income families of color in Oakland will soon receive $500 a month with no strings attached cash as part of a privately funded program. Mayor Libby Schaaf said in a Tuesday announcement the Oakland Resilient Families Program and raised nearly $7 million to help families of color with at least one minor child making less than $30,000 a year. Under the plan, participants would be randomly selected, and white people who earn 3 times as much as blacks on average in the city are not eligible. We have designed this demonstration project to add to the body of evidence and to begin a relentless campaign to adopt a guaranteed income federally, Schaaf said. The Oakland project is one of the largest in the U.S. so far, targeting up to 600 families. All right, now let's move on to weather. And as many of you know, our weather is arranged by altitude. And it is arranged by altitude because we believe that is, for our coverage area, that is the single most important determining factor of whether you have sun or snow, etc. And the temperature variations between the lower portions of our coverage area and the upper portions can be as much as 20 to 25 degrees. So if you want to have a little bit of different weather, all you got to do is hop in your car, drive a half an hour, and you are set. All right, let's have a quick look. And here we go. And above the 6,000 foot level, this is what we're looking at. This is For Bear Valley, Lake Alpine, Kirkwood, Kennedy, Meadows, Pinecrest, etc., it is currently showing 23 degrees. And today, look at that, the sun starts rolling in. A high of 41 today, 25 for the low tonight, 51 for the high on Saturday, 29 for the low on Saturday night, 52 for the high on Sunday, 31 for the low on Sunday night, Monday 47, 23, 46. And what you're looking at as far as spring conditions for skiing and stuff, the number you want to really look at is, are they getting back below freezing enough to be able to groom conditions and stuff effectively overnight? And it looks like the only night that may not make it is Sunday night with a low of 31. But other than that, they're getting a low of 23 on Monday night. Highs for the most part in the 40s, but 51 on Saturday. So just perfect spring skiing and recreation conditions in the mountains. Just, it's not going to get any better than that. They have plenty of coverage, good snow depth. Go play. All right, let's drop on down to mid-slope. This is where most of the second homes, etc., are in our area as far as vacation homes and also some full-time residents as well. We are looking, this would be for Arnold, Camp Connell, Dorrington, Big Trees Village, Big Trees State Park, on the Highway 4 side, on the Highway 108 side, Meewook Village, Twain Harte, etc., and on the Highway 88 side, Pioneer, Barton, etc. Highs of 53 today, 38, 58, 41, 61 on Saturday, 41, 55, 36, and 58. So just absolutely stunning looking going forward. All right, now let's drop on down to what we affectionately call the lower slope communities. These are communities that are above the Highway 49 corridor, but below consistent snow levels. So you're looking at Murphy's, Mountain Ranch, Soulsbyville, etc. 61, 42, 66, 46, 70. Yes, we have a 70 on Sunday. 45, 62, 41, and 65. Absolutely perfect temps. All right, the Highway 49 corridor from Sutter Creek, Jackson, McCollum Hill, San Andreas, Angels Camp, and Sonora. 63, 43, 68, 46, 72, 45, 64, and 68. All right. Now, drop on down to lake level. Yes, it's time to start talking about that. You have for Copperopolis, Valley Springs, Rancho Calaveras, Ione, Lower Jamestown, and Don Pedro, 65, 45, 70, 47, 73, 46, 65, 43, and 68. And that is just very nice. All right, that will do it for us for this segment. Come on up, have a great weekend. If you are a local, get out and explore your backyard, because you are lucky enough to live on some of the greatest areas on the planet. It's not just us saying so. Have a great day.